Hello and welcome. My name is Al Barrows, and this is UFO Disclosure, the podcast that's meant to show an average person's reaction to all the UFO, UAP news from everywhere and anywhere. Today, I'd like to talk about something I saw on Alien Cases. It involves a man of faith confronted with the impossible task of giving last rites to extraterrestrials. Cape Gerardeau, Missouri, in 1941. It was a portrait of Midwestern tranquility. It was a place of traditional values. At the spiritual center of this community was Reverend William Guy Huffman. At 53, he was the pastor of the Red Star Baptist Church, a man whose life was dedicated to God and his family. His routine was predictable, a cycle of sermons, prayers, and quiet dinners with his wife, Floyd, and their two children. The spring night in question seemed no different when around 9 p.m. a firm and urgent knock on the doorstep shattered the peace of the home. On the doorstep stood the town sheriff. It was not a social call. There was tension in his eyes and urgency in his voice. He spoke of an aircraft that had crashed in a remote field on the outskirts of the Chaffee area, nearly 18 miles away. There were victims, and the presence of a man of God was needed to offer the last rites. For Reverend Hoffman, it was a call to duty, an act of compassion in the midst of a tragedy. Little did he know that the tragedy he was about to witness was not of this world. The car ride plunged into the growing darkness of the Missouri hills. As they approached, flashing lights on the horizon cut through the night. There were emergency lights, many lights. There was a frantic activity at the scene, something that indicated this was no simple accident with a crop duster. It was something much bigger. As he stepped out of the car, Reverend Huffman was engulfed by a scene of organized chaos. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and something else, a metallic, almost electric odor. Firefighters battled pockets of fire. Police officers, paramedics, and even FBI agents were securing the area, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. But it was when he walked to the center of the disaster that the Reverend's reality shattered. There was no familiar wreckage of an airplane, no wings, no fuselage, no propeller in its place. Embedded in the earth was an object that defied logic. It was shaped like a saucer, a silver metal disc with no visible seams or rivets. It was partially ruptured from the impact, and some flames still licked at its alien structure. It was such an impossible sight that for a moment the Reverend doubted his own eyes. But the biggest shock was yet to come. Lying near the craft were two bodies, small, frail, about 4 feet tall. They were clearly not human. Their heads were large and disproportionate, with minimal facial features, just small slits for a mouth and nose, and no ears. Their skin was a grayish, hairless tone. Their arms and fingers were abnormally long. They wore tight-fitting one-piece suits that shone under the lights like crumpled aluminum foil. A little further on, a third being was fighting for its life. It seemed to have crawled away from the fire, its breath a faint whisper in the night. In that moment, the sheriff's call made a terrible, profound sense. William Huffman, Baptist pastor from rural Missouri, was there to give the last rites, to offer a final prayer, not for men, but for travelers from an unknown place. In a trembling voice, he prayed for those lost souls. An act of faith that crossed the boundary between worlds. As the prayer ended, a macabre scene unfolded. Two police officers lifted one of the lifeless beings by the arms and posed for a photograph. A surreal record capturing humanity's first contact with the bizarre. With the flames finally under control, curiosity overcame fear. Reverend Huffman approached the damaged craft. Through a tear in the structure, he managed to peer inside. It was a glimpse into another universe. There was a small metal bench, panels covered with inscriptions that resembled Egyptian hieroglyphs, but of an entirely strange nature. Unusually shaped buttons and a control similar to a console completed the scene. He had no words or references to describe what he saw. It was a technology that was centuries, perhaps millennia, ahead of his own. The atmosphere at the site changed abruptly with the arrival of a new force, an Army Air Corps unit from the Sion base. The operation, which had previously felt like a rescue and containment effort, became cold, methodical, and authoritarian. The command was clear. None of this had ever happened. A local resident who had brought a camera had his equipment and all his film confiscated. Every piece of debris was collected. And then came the threats. One by one, every civilian present was taken aside and coerced into an oath of secrecy. They were told it was a matter of national security. The warning was implicit but unmistakable. Talking about what they saw would have severe consequences. That night, the truth wasn't just hidden, it was buried under the weight of fear. The Reverend returned home, a changed man. The shock of what he witnessed was not just illogical, it was spiritual. It went against everything he knew, everything he believed in. As a man whose life was a testimony to the truth, he found himself trapped in a state-imposed lie. He couldn't keep it. That very night, in confidence to his wife and children, he broke the military oath to honor a more sacred vow, honesty with his family. He told them everything, every impossible detail, and made them promise to guard the secret with their lives. And so the Cape Gerardeau incident vanished from history, becoming a whispered legend, only a whispered legend within the walls of the Hoffman family home. Years turned into decades. Reverend William Hoffman took the secret to his grave in 1959. The story lived on like a ghost, a memory that occasionally haunted the family conversations. The Reverend's children, now adults, spoke of it amongst themselves, but the fear of their father's oath still loomed over them. The flame of this unbelievable memory might have been extinguished forever if not for the Reverend's granddaughter, Charlotte Mann. During her childhood, she caught fragments of the story, pieces of a puzzle she couldn't assemble, but the full revelation would only come in 1984, in a moment of extreme sorrow. Her grandmother, Flo, the Reverend's wife, was on her deathbed. With time running out, she felt the need to unburden herself from the weight she had carried for over 40 years. She called for Charlotte and in a final confession passed the torch of the memory. She recounted everything from the sheriff's knock on the door to the description of the beings and the ship. And she revealed a crucial detail. There was proof, a photograph. Flo explained that weeks after the incident, the Reverend anonymously received a copy of that photo taken on the night of the crash. The image of the two men holding the alien being, the Reverend guarded it zealously before passing it to his son, Charlotte's father. Charlotte remembered seeing the photo a few times as a child. A black and white image with the typical white borders of an old camera, showing something that shouldn't exist. But like so much evidence in the world of ufology, the photograph became a legend. In the mid-1950s, Charlotte's father gave it to a photographer friend, Walter Fisk, for analysis. It was the last time anyone saw it. All that remains today is a drawing that Charlotte herself made, a pale imitation of the definitive proof that was lost to time. The story, now without its physical evidence, rested solely on Charlotte's shoulders. She was the last guardian of the memory. For nearly 50 years, the story remained dormant. It was only in the late 1980s that one of the biggest names in ufology, Leonard Stringfield, a former Air Force consultant, heard the first rumors of a crash predating Roswell. His investigation led him to the only witness who carried the complete story, Charlotte Mann. Through a detailed letter from Charlotte, Stringfield published the case for the first time in his 1991 book, UFO Crash Retrievals, shocking the UFO community. He didn't stop there. He obtained a sworn affidavit from Charlotte's sister, who confirmed hearing the same story, and from the original sheriff's brother, who corroborated that his brother had in fact taken the Reverend to a secret plane crash that night. Stringfield even found a fire department log that mentioned an air crash in the area, but whose details were suspiciously vague, stating only that the military took control and swore everyone to secrecy. Stringfield's investigation opened the door for others. Reporter Guyler Sheridan claimed to have found confirmation of the story in the Washington archives. Researcher Ryan Woods dedicated 2 years to the case, claiming to have assessed leaked military documents that validated the incident and describing Charlotte as a witness of integrity who never sought profit or fame from her account. Perhaps the darkest piece of the puzzle came from Linda Wallace, a local resident. She revealed that her father had access to confidential documents about the 1941 event, and that upon investigating on her own years later, she discovered that all the library's newspapers on microfilm corresponding to the period of the crash had been deliberately erased. The local police and the fire department's records had also vanished. It was proof not of the crash itself, but of the cover-up. A meticulous and complete cleansing designed to turn a historical fact into mere fiction. The Cape Gerardeau case, it is a story that has survived not through physical evidence which was hunted down and destroyed, but through the courage of a family that dared to remember. The truth was kept alive, not in a government vault, but in the memory of a grandmother passed to her granddaughter. Reverend Hoffman took the secret to his death in 1959, and the story was whispered amongst his family for decades after that. If it weren't for his granddaughter, Charlotte Mann, none of this would have ever come to light. My name is Al Barrows. This has been UFO Disclosure. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.